Okay, everybody, we're gonna get started here with Ms. Joy Taylor. I'm gonna give her your speaker bio. If you guys have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, ask them in the question and answer section on the bottom of your Zoom, and we will allow you to speak and ask your question, and she could, have some interaction. So, with a quick wit, sharp tongue, and some legendary football DNA, Joy Taylor kicked the doors down on the all boys club that is sports talk radio and has never looked back. After nearly 2 years hosting Undisputed, Joy traveled across the FS1 studio, where she currently co-hosts with Colin Cowherd on The Herd, weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern. She also hosts a weekend podcast, Maybe I'm Crazy, as well as a weekly YouTube show, Joy Taylor Talks, and hosts Thursday Night Football, Scouts Feed on Prime Video and Twitch. Joy has quickly become a fixture on the national sports media scene. Boys and girls, Joy Taylor.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me. Omar, I don't know if I'm supposed to see anything, but I just see a black screen, so I think that's right.
Yes, that's correct. You'll see them when we ask questions.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys for having me. Really excited to be here and meet all of you. You are seeing me from my home set right now, which is why you have the Herd backgrounds behind me. We're all kind of doing it different these days. And California has a little different rules when you travel. When I was just in South Florida this past weekend, so that's why you're seeing me like this and not in my normal like couch or bookcase. But just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about sports media and my journey into the business. I actually went to school at South Florida, at Berry in South Florida, Berry University. I graduated from there with a degree in broadcast journalism, and I kind of started in the business in 2007. That was my first internship at 560 QAM on the Joe Rose morning show, and I interned there for a semester. And then through being in the building working with Joe, I got an internship with DJ Laz's morning show when he was at Power 96 with Evie. And I interned there for a while as well. So did about a year and a half of interning before graduating, just on the radio side. And obviously I work in radio every day as well as television. So a lot of the experience that I got from those internships, I still use today. I also worked at the student radio station at Berry called WBRY. I was in it was like a media 101 class or something with one of my professors there, and she had a representative from the student radio station come in and talk to the class, and they told us that they needed hosts for shows to fill out the lineup. And I was actually kind of surprised. They wanted to know that we even had a radio station at the school, and I was just surprised that they were asking us to go host. Like, I was like, I mean, we're all in media, like, we should be wanting to host a radio show. So I was very excited. I went down and signed up right away that day for a time slot. And I did my own radio show there at the student radio station, at Berry. And eventually became a manager of the radio station while I was in school there as well. So when I was in college, I was very actively working towards building my resume and getting experience in the business and making connections. And those were all very useful for when I got my first paying job in the business, which was at 560 QAM, where I interned my first internship about a year and a half after graduating. When I graduated from school, I had a job lined up to work as the producer for DJ Laz full time, a job that I was essentially doing as an intern. And Clear Channel, which is now iHeartMedia, fired half of their staff around the country. Well, they are the biggest owner of radio stations at the time in the business. So it kind of sent just like a shockwave through the industry. And our radio station is a much smaller company, just had a hiring freeze. So if they needed to promote someone, it had to be someone who was already an actual employee of the company. So all my plans for graduation kind of got halted, and I didn't know what to do. And so I got in kind of like the art side of it and nonprofit, and then eventually found my way back into the business, where I got my first job at 560 QAM as a part-time producer for the Sid Rosenberg Show. I worked for Sid for a while, and then Dan Cilio, all as a producer. I would do some weekend shows on weekend night slots on the station when they were available. I also worked as a freelancer for several media companies in South Florida. I was also working as a writer covering high school sports in South Florida, and had a couple other jobs as well, bartending on South Beach to make it all work. But that's what you do when you first get in the business. You got to hustle. And then eventually I got the executive producer job for the Hawkman Zaslow show at 790 The Ticket. So I was executive producer for their show until Hawkman left. And then the seat was open next to Zaz, and I got the opportunity to host a show with Zaz. So we had the Zaslow and Joyce show for several years in South Florida, morning radio. And that was a great opportunity for me. It really established me as a talent, and are some of my best memories in the business, working at 790 The Ticket and, covering the Heats and LeBron, and just an amazing experience being there during that time in South Florida. And about 5 years ago, I got the opportunity to come to Los Angeles, where I am now, and work for FS1 and Fox Sports Radio. When I was originally hired to come out here, I didn't have a role on the show yet. They hadn't launched the show that they were hiring me for, and they were kind of moving a lot of pieces around. And so when I first got here, I really was only filling in on the herd from time to time, testing some things and working on the weekends for Fox Sports Radio, until Skip came and they launched Undisputed. So we launched Undisputed together, me, Skip, and Shannon. And I worked on that show for several years, had an amazing experience. I mean, we did shows from New York for the McGregor fights, Vegas for McGregor Mayweather, NBA Finals, Cleveland, Oakland, Super Bowl in Houston, US Open. So we really had an amazing time launching that show, and we're able to do the show from a lot of places around the country. It was a really awesome experience. And then I got the opportunity to move across the studio and work with Colin Cowherd. And I had done the show a lot, obviously, when I first came out here filling in, and then I would periodically fill in on the herd when I was doing Undisputed. So the transition wasn't too rocky to go to the show, because I'd already done the show a bunch with Colin and knew Colin pretty well at that point. But we've been doing the show for about, it's a little over 2 years now, 2.5 years. And it's an awesome time every day to be able to do radio, which is where I started in the business, and work with Colin every day, this week from home, but we'll be back in studio next week. And just get to talk about sports and life and do what I love every day. So I don't really feel like I work, because I truly would do this for free, and did do it for free for a while. But it's an amazing business to be in. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work. It's a long journey, and it kind of evolves all the time, but it's totally worth it if it's something that you're passionate about, which I am. And I'm really, really blessed to do what I love every day.
That's amazing. I remember following you when you were in 790 The Ticket. It's still one of my favorite morning shows, but definitely not the same without you, Zaslow, and Brett. How was it working with Brett Romberg, who is a legend, and Zaslow, who might be one of the funniest personalities in South Florida? You being, you have a pretty famous last name and a female working in this all boys club. How would you describe that situation?
Well, working with Zaslow and Romberg was great. We had a fun time on that show. Doing strictly radio is a really kind of different experience than doing television. Television can be a little less, I guess, intimate. When you're doing radio, you're doing several hours of a show in a small radio studio. Your radio partners will become like family, because you just spend a lot of time with them, and you're filling a lot of time. And so, working with Zaz and Romberg was great. And Brendan Tobin was our producer, our executive producer on that show, and he and I went to college together. So, you know, we were kind of like a little family, a little South Florida family on that show. So it was really a great time.
That's awesome. We have a question from Laura Blanco. She's a great, talented broadcast journalist from Doral Academy. I'm gonna make her live so she can ask a question for you. Go ahead.
Hi, so I'm a really big fan and I just have a quick question. Do you have any tips for young women pursuing sports media now?
Hi, Laura. Sure. I mean, I think overall, just a good tip if you're a woman in any male-dominated business is that you're going to have to be better than all of your peers. You're going to have to be early. You're going to have to do more work. You're going to have to prove yourself more. You're going to have to go the extra mile. You're going to have to do all the extra things that the guys don't do. And it'll feel really unfair, which it is. But the reality is there's still this idea that women don't belong in these male-dominated spaces. And one of the ways I've found to prove that I do belong is by being excellent. And, you know, you don't become excellent by doing things the way that everyone else does them. And that's not to say that there aren't a lot of really excellent male talent in the business. It's just to say that if she's a woman, if you're seeing her where she is on television, it's because she went that extra mile. She did all of the extra work. She gets up earlier. She's always on time. There's no question about whether, you know, she deserves to be there or not, because it does take so much more work to get noticed. And, you know, people don't believe that you're there because you like sports, or that you're there because you just want to be on TV, or you just want to be famous, or, you know, there's always a million different excuses. So you always have to prove yourself, which can be exhausting, but it's just the way that it is. So, you know, I could be more specific depending on, you know, what area of the business you want to get in, but I think that's just a good overall rule for any, you know, male dominated industry.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
We got a couple more questions coming in. I'm going to promote Lucas Figueroa right now. Let me see. Lucas, here we go. Go ahead, Lucas. Lucas? I think he's having some problems with his microphone. He wants to know, is Skip Bayless's personality like he is on camera?
Well, I mean, yes and no. No, Skip is not debating everybody off camera about sports 24/7, but he does care about what he's talking about. He's one of the most hardworking people in the business. He gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning every day to start his prep and his workout before the show starts. And he is absolutely relentless and obsessed with sports. He watches everything that's on television. He researches everything. And what I think a lot of, especially young people, don't know about Skip, because they only see him on TV and only really know him from First Take and Undisputed, is that Skip was a reporter and sports writer for literally decades. Like, he covered Michael Jordan, like in the building, not like how we are watching, you know, LeBron, and, you know, like he was literally there in the building. Michael Jordan, the Dallas Cowboys, like he's written books about these things, and was like, he's worked in the business for a very, very, very long time on the radio side, writing, and in television. So he really has a whole lot of experience in sports and covering sports, and a lot of firsthand experience at a lot of these major, you know, historic sports moments. So yeah, he is legit. He's not arguing with you in the break about LeBron and MJ, but Skip's wonderful. He's been great for my career. Him and his wife Ernestine are really good friends of mine, and so yes, he believes everything he's saying. he means it, but no, in that he's like a really sweet guy and like likes to watch movies and eat pizza with Ernestine and their dog Hazel.
We have another question. This person's anonymous, but they want to know, did you ever feel intimidated in sports media in a male-dominated field?
Sure. I mean, yeah, there's going to be times where you feel like feel intimidated, I guess, but I think anybody who's in a new space can feel intimidated. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. To feel like you don't belong is, I think, something different. There's never been a time where I didn't feel like I could do what I'm supposed to do or what my male colleagues do. There's just going to be times when you're the only woman in the room. And sometimes you'll be the only person of color in the room, male or female. And, that is an experience that you probably have in a lot of spaces in life, but when it's at work, it can be a little jarring. I don't know if I would use the word intimidating, but, if you are prepared and you love what you do and you're confident in yourself, then there's not really a reason to feel intimidated. Anytime I've ever felt like, a little nervous is when I wasn't really prepared for what I was doing. So the first time I'm, doing sidelines, I was like nervous, like there's a lot going on. It's live, like the producers are yelling at you. You need to be on this sideline. Like there's a lot going on. So it wasn't necessarily that I was intimidated because I was a woman. It's just like, it's just a new experience. And I think anybody would feel that way.
All right, we have a question from David Raman. I'm going to allow him to talk so he can ask himself. Go ahead, David.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm also a huge fan. I watch you, especially a lot during quarantine and stuff. You're awesome, but I know you talk a lot about sports on your shows and everything. But what podcasts or TV shows or radio do you like to listen to, and why?
Hi, David. Thank you so much for watching the show. I really like to watch, when I'm not watching sports, I like to watch really well-written TV shows. Like I just finished Queen's Gambit. So I watched Schitt's Creek in quarantine as well. Like I like really well-written, well-produced like television shows or movies. Insecure. I'm gonna watch Judas and the Black Messiah tonight. Just things that are just kind of, I guess, traditional media in that sense. I'm not like a big reality TV person. I am watching The Bachelor this season, but it's the first time I've ever watched. So I'm like, you know what? I need to have this experience as well. But yeah, I mean, I do a lot of different podcasts depending on like, what's going on. So but I really like to watch well scripted shows. Like I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, Mandalorian, things like that.
That's awesome. I have another person that would like to ask you a pretty good question. He's from Miami, Florida, and he's got a great last name, Lucas Delgado. You're up. Go ahead, Lucas.
All right, thank you. So, Joy, I'm a big fan of yours. I've watched Undisputed a lot, so that's pretty much the main reason why I know as much about like the sports media world as I do, watching that show a lot, and shows like First Take, getting a good look at the debate world in sports. And also as a sports fan myself, I know that a lot of times debates can get pretty heated when it comes to sports. So when you were on Undisputed, when you were hosting, how are you able to manage making sure that the debates between Skip and Shannon were at the point where they didn't get too far, but where there was able to still be enough content to the debate to where the viewer would have an enjoyable experience?
Hi, Lucas. It's nice to meet you. It's so that show's kind of interesting because it's really unique, and obviously First Take is the same format. So what we would like to say is that shows have beats. So the beats of The Herd, for example, is a radio show. So we don't have hard outs, meaning you don't have to go to commercial break at 4:19:30 and then go to break in order to fit in all the content in the show and the commercials in the hour. Undisputed and First Take are kind of similar to radio shows in that way, in that there's really only hard outs at the end of the hour. Most television shows have a little less flexibility. They don't necessarily all have a certain amount of time they have to hit before they get to commercial, but it's not as flexible as Undisputed and The Herd, obviously being a radio show. So Undisputed is really unique in that sense. So to answer your question, it's a lot of technical juggling that's going on when you're a moderator of a show like that. Like you have to get in, ask the question. Obviously, the guys are completely unscripted. So, whether there's a guest or it's just Skip and Shannon, you have to make sure that everybody is getting their chance to talk. The guys really respect each other. So it's not like they ever want it to get to a place where it becomes too crazy or, everyone's yelling or someone gets disrespectful or something like that. We're all aware we're doing television and that, there are people who are watching who need to understand what we're saying. So we can't all talk at the same time. And, but it's more of just an awareness of how the show goes. And the more you do the show, the more you get into that space. Now, obviously there's times where Skip and Shannon are just like going at it and like, we got to get to break. So sometimes I'll just have to jump in there like, all right, guys, like we got to leave it there. We'll that's it. And then like just tease for the next block. And that's just all that's all there is to it. Like at the end of the day, we are doing a TV show as much as, they would go on for literally 5 hours. We got to do what we're doing within the technical space of television. So it takes practice. It's a lot of, you can't be scared to jump in and talk over somebody or like say we got to leave it there. Skip and Shannon and I had a really great working relationship and chemistry. So that helps if you know the show well, if you know, like I said, the beats of the show and when you're doing that job, it helps to have good chemistry with the people on the set because it is debating and it can get heated. But I will say as soon as we go to break, it's gone. It's like the conversation didn't happen. Shannon's with his producer working on the next block. Skip's reading over his notes for the next block. Nobody's like arguing in the break about what we were talking about in the block before. So it's actually a lot more technical than people see happening, but that is the secret to a lot of great productions is that what may look very loose and kind of uncontrolled is actually very, very highly produced.
I have a question for you, Joy. This is twofold. One, how was it being a Miami Heat fan in LA last season? And two, what are your feelings toward LeBron now actually helping us win 2 championships and then beating us in a championship?
It was awesome being a Heat fan in LA because this particular Heat team didn't have LeBron on it. So everybody didn't have a ridiculous reason to hate the Miami Heat. I think nationally, the Heat got a lot of respect last season. Jimmy Butler, Eric Spoelstra, I think finally really got his flowers. So, no one expected us to be there. I mean, I didn't expect us to make the finals last year. And it was fun, actually. Being a Heat fan without the animosity that was going on when, during the Big Three was a really fun experience. I think nationally, everyone really respected the Heat after that because, we weren't supposed to win. It would have been an all-time upset if the Heat beat Anthony Davis and LeBron James and the Lakers in the finals. So it was fun, actually. But I will say, so I've kind of let go of all the bitterness I had about him leaving the Heat. Obviously, that was a long time ago. We did get 2 championships and went to 4 straight finals. I was upset about him going back to Cleveland, but when he came to the Lakers, it was like LeBron is now passed almost into a Tom Brady space for me, where obviously I never rooted for Tom Brady, but after Tom Brady won the Super Bowl in Houston over the Atlanta Falcons, I was like, you know what? There's just really no point in me hating this guy. Like, it's a bad life experience for me to hate Tom Brady. He's clearly the best. I don't want his career to end and me have spent the entirety of it being mad about him winning because he's clearly just going to keep doing it. And when LeBron left Cleveland, I was like, all right, now we're on to the next chapter. I'm just going to enjoy watching LeBron. So he's clearly the best player in the NBA. He's still doing it at an unbelievable high level. having all of the years that he has and having played so many extra games from being in the playoffs and going to the finals almost every year for how many years now. So he really has like an extra added 2 seasons to his 17 years. I believe he's in the 17th year now. So yeah, so I don't have any animosity towards LeBron. I like LeBron. I enjoy watching LeBron play basketball, and seeing what he is doing with the Lakers it's pretty incredible. I mean, for him to win a championship with 3 different teams, and if Anthony Davis stays healthy, they're the favorites to win again this year. It's pretty remarkable, and it's making my life as a Michael Jordan zealot very difficult. But yeah, I appreciate LeBron for everything that LeBron is now, now that he's not in Cleveland.
Okay, I got a question from Anonymous. You've accomplished so much in your career already. What continues to motivate you, and what's next for you? What's your next step?
Well, thank you. I don't really, this is going to sound weird, but I have accomplished some things, but I haven't reached my ultimate goals yet. So I feel like I still have a lot to do, I guess is the way I should say that. So, I would like to host my own show one day, which is the next step for me in my career, and a goal of mine. I mean, ultimately, I have really massive goals, but the next step for me in my career would be to host my own show. Not necessarily just me, but just like be the host of a show. So that's what I'm working on next. We'll see.
Awesome. David has another question for you. I'm going to allow him to ask it. Go ahead, David.
Thanks. Where are Deshaun Watson and JJ Watt going, in your opinion?
Hi, David. Well, JJ Watt's kind of interesting because he left a lot of money on the table, and I'd really like to see him go to a contender, and I think that's what he wants to do. I know the Packers are kind of in the mix, Pittsburgh too. Obviously, his brother plays there. I think he's just going to end up with a contender. I think he's going to go to the place where he has the best opportunity to win a championship. I'd like to see him go to the Packers. I think they need to make a really aggressive splash move. It would be very uncharacteristic of them to do that, but I also think they need it. So I would like to see him go to the Packers, but I think he's just going to end up in the best situation schematically for him. I mean, he's been in the league for quite some time now. He's already a Hall of Famer, so he can choose where he wants to go, and I think that's what he's going to end up doing. As far as Deshaun Watson goes, I hope that it doesn't get ugly. It's looking like it might, because Houston is continuously saying they're not going to trade him. The most realistic place, if the game that Houston is playing is that they want the most for him, is the Jets. The Jets have the 2nd pick in the draft. They have Sam Darnold, and they have a ton of draft capital. So they could give the most for Deshaun Watson. Now, I don't think that's the best place for Deshaun Watson to go, because they're still a couple years away from being a contender in a division that is not a bad division anymore. I mean, we don't know what the Patriots are going to be, but the Bills and the Dolphins certainly have it together. So I don't know that that's the best place for him to go, but I know that Houston's going to want to get the most for him, and the Jets can give Houston Sam Darnold plus the number 2 picks for Deshaun Watson. The Panthers are in the mix for Deshaun Watson as well. I think that would be a great place for him. I know people in South Florida don't want to hear this, but I would like for him to come to the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins have everything together on the defensive side of the ball, and they really need a playmaker. We need a franchise quarterback. And I don't know if Tua is that yet. And I don't know that the Dolphins did Tua any favors in the way that they handled him this year. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to stick with Tua, but the most realistic place when you look at the picks is probably the Jets.
Joy, I think that we're running out here of questions, but I just want to give a little plug because I'm a big fan of Maybe I'm Crazy. I think that's your best, your real personality comes out there the most. You're not being censored as much as you are on TV, and I love your personality. I'm a big fan of yours. Please don't forget us here in Miami. We were cheering for you. We want you to achieve all your goals, and we wish you nothing but the best. And thank you for allowing all these young journalists, especially these young female journalists, get to see firsthand what they could become. You're a great representation, and we're really proud to have you a part of our panel.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Keep working hard. Everything is totally possible. If you ever have any questions, you can reach out to me on social media, or you can email me. Omar has my email. So just keep working hard. And thank you guys so much for having me on the panel. And thank you so much for watching the show. It was so nice to meet all of you.
Thank you, Joy. Have a nice night.
Thank you. You too, guys.
Bye.